Have you ever felt a chill crawl up your spine while reading a seemingly harmless message? What if that message was a riddle, a taunt from a killer who derived pleasure from the fear he instilled? This is the story of a shadow that terrorized Northern California, a phantom who called himself the Zodiac and left behind a legacy of blood, fear, and ciphers that continue to baffle investigators to this day. His game was death, and his rules were written in the cryptic language of the stars. A chilling challenge to anyone who dared to try and unmask the monster. The late 1960s in California was a time of seismic social change, a whirlwind of counterculture, vibrant music, and a burgeoning sense of freedom. But beneath this veneer of peace and love, a darkness was brewing, a nameless dread that would soon have a name. It began on the lonely, winding roads on the outskirts of Vallejo, quiet lovers' lanes that became the hunting grounds for a predator. These weren't random acts of violence. They were calculated, cold-blooded executions that served as the opening act for a long and terrifying performance. December 20, 1968, a young couple, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, parked on Lake Herman Road, their minds filled with the innocent dreams of teenagers. Their dreams were shattered by the cold reality of a gunman who approached their car and ended their lives with brutal efficiency. There were no witnesses, no motives, just the chilling silence of the night, and 2 young lives extinguished. The police were baffled, the community stunned. This was just the beginning of the Zodiac's reign of terror, a bloody prelude to the psychological warfare he was about to wage. 7 months later, the phantom struck again. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Majo were sitting in a parked car at Blue Rock Springs Park when a vehicle pulled up behind them. The driver emerged, a shadowy figure who approached their car and without a word opened fire. Darlene was killed instantly, while Michael, though grievously wounded, survived. The killer then made a chilling phone call to the Vallejo Police Department, his voice a calm, monotone whisper, claiming responsibility for the attack and the previous murders on Lake Herman Road. The game had begun. On August 1, 1969, 3 newspapers in the San Francisco Bay Area received nearly identical letters. The author claimed responsibility for the recent attacks and provided details that only the killer could know. But it was the contents of the letters that truly sent a shockwave of fear through the public. Each letter contained a third of a 408-symbol cryptogram, a bizarre collection of symbols and letters that the author claimed would reveal his identity if solved. The Zodiac had officially introduced himself, not just as a killer, but as a twisted mastermind. The letters were a direct challenge to law enforcement and the media. He demanded that the cryptograms be published on the front page of the newspapers, threatening more killings if his demands were not met. This was not just a murderer seeking notoriety. This was a terrorist, using the media as his stage, and the public's fear as his weapon. The Zodiac was playing a deadly game, and the entire Bay Area was his unwilling audience. The pressure on the police was immense, and the public was gripped by a palpable sense of terror. A week later, the first cipher was cracked, not by the FBI or seasoned cryptographers, but by a high school teacher and his wife. The message was chilling in its simplicity and horrifying in its implications. It spoke of the thrill of the hunt, of killing people because it was so much fun. More fun than hunting wild animals in the forest. The author believed that his victims would become his slaves in the afterlife. The Zodiac's twisted amity was laid bare for all to see. A glimpse into the mind of a monster. The Zodiac's reign of terror continued. In late September, he attacked another young couple, this time at Lake Berryessa. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking by the water when a man wearing a bizarre, executioner-style hood approached them. Brandishing a gun, he tied them up before brutally stabbing them, leaving them for dead. Cecilia succumbed to her injuries, but Brian miraculously survived, providing the police with the only detailed description of the Zodiac. He described a man of average height and build, his face hidden behind a mask, his voice calm and deliberate. The hooded figure at Lake Berryessa became an iconic image of the Zodiac, a symbol of the faceless terror that haunted Northern California. The killer then drove to payphone and, in the same calm, monotone voice, reported the crime to the police. He was meticulous, theatrical, and utterly devoid of remorse. He was a performer, and each murder was a carefully staged act in his gruesome play. The public was no longer just afraid, they were petrified. 2 weeks later, the Zodiac struck again, this time in the heart of San Francisco. Paul Stein, a cab driver, picked up a fare who directed him to the upscale neighborhood of Presidio Heights. There, the passenger shot Stein in the head, killing him instantly. The killer then tore a piece of Stein's blood-soaked shirt, a gruesome trophy from his latest kill. The murder of a cab driver in a busy city was a brazen escalation, a clear message that no one was safe. The Zodiac's game of cat and mouse with the police reached a new level of audacity after the murder of Paul Stein. He sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, accompanied by a piece of Stein's bloody shirt as proof of his crime. In the letter, he taunted the police for their incompetence, claiming they could have caught him that night. He also threatened to attack a school bus, a threat that sent a wave of panic through every parent in the Bay Area. The threat against school children was a new low, even for the Zodiac. It was a calculated move to maximize public fear and pressure on the police. Schools were put on high alert, and police escorts were assigned to school buses. The Zodiac had succeeded in creating a climate of constant fear and paranoia. He was not just a killer, he was a puppeteer, and the entire city was dancing to his tune. The Zodiac continued to send letters and ciphers to the media, each one more taunting and cryptic than the last. One of the most famous was the 340 cipher, a complex cryptogram that remained unsolved for over 50 years. These ciphers were the Zodiac's trademark, his way of proving his intellectual superiority over the police and the public. They were also a source of endless fascination and frustration for amateur and professional cryptographers alike. The Zodiac's letters were a disturbing mix of arrogance, self-pity, and a chilling lack of empathy. He complained about headaches, mocked the police, and made grandiose claims about his intelligence and invincibility. He signed his letters with a distinctive cross-circle symbol, a mark that became synonymous with terror. The letters were a window into his twisted mind, a mind that saw murder as a game and people as mere pawns. As the years went by, the Zodiac's letters became less frequent. The killings seemed to have stopped, but the fear he had instilled lingered. The case went cold, but it never truly faded from the public consciousness. The Zodiac became a modern-day boogeyman, a faceless phantom who had terrorized a region and then vanished without a trace. The unsolved nature of the case only added to its mystique and horror. The investigation into the Zodiac killings was one of the largest and most complex in American history. Hundreds of suspects were investigated, but no one was ever charged. The Zodiac's ability to evade capture was as impressive as it was terrifying. He was a ghost, a shadow who moved through the night, leaving a trail of death and cryptic messages in his wake. The police were always one step behind, chasing a phantom they could never quite grasp. One of the most promising suspects was Arthur Leigh Allen, a former schoolteacher with a history of disturbing behavior. He was interviewed by police and was the subject of several search warrants, but there was never enough evidence to connect him to the crimes. Allen maintained his innocence until his death in 1992, taking any secrets he may have had to the grave. For many, he remains the most likely candidate for the Zodiac, but the truth remains elusive. The Zodiac's legacy extends far beyond the crimes he committed. He has become a cultural icon, a symbol of unsolved mystery and the embodiment of evil. His story has been the subject of countless books, documentaries, and movies, each attempting to unravel the enigma of the Zodiac. He is a testament to the fact that some mysteries are never solved and some monsters are never caught. The Zodiac ciphers have continued to fascinate and challenge people for decades. In 2020, a team of amateur codebreakers finally cracked the 340 cipher. 51 years after it was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. The message, however, did not reveal the killer's name. Instead, it was another taunting rant, a defiant message from a ghost of the past. The Zodiac, it seemed, was still playing his game, even from beyond the grave. The decoded message from the 340 cipher was as chilling as the first. The Zodiac wrote that he was not afraid of the gas chamber because it would send him to paradise all the sooner, where he had enough slaves to work for him. The misspelling of paradise was a characteristic touch, a small detail that added to the unsettling nature of the message. The Zodiac was not just a killer. He was a master of psychological manipulation. The Zodiac's impact on the victims' families is a story of enduring pain and unanswered questions. For decades, they have lived with the knowledge that their loved one's killer was never brought to justice. Their grief is a constant reminder of the Zodiac's cruelty and the long shadow he cast over their lives. The case may be cold for the police, but for the families, the wounds have never healed. The Zodiac's crimes also had a profound impact on the communities he terrorized. The random nature of the attacks meant that anyone could be a victim. The sense of safety and security was shattered, replaced by a constant feeling of unease. The Zodiac had turned the idyllic landscapes of Northern California into a landscape of fear. The psychological scars he left on the region are as real as the physical scars he left on his victims. The Zodiac case is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of society. He was a product of his time, a dark reflection of the social upheaval and anxieties of the late 1960s. But he was also something more, something timeless and terrifying. He was a monster who reveled in chaos and fear, a puzzle that was never meant to be solved. The lingering question, the one that has haunted investigators and the public for over half a century, is simple. Who was the Zodiac? Was he a brilliant but deranged individual, a mastermind who outsmarted the police at every turn? Or was he just a lucky killer, a phantom who benefited from the limitations of forensic science at the time? The truth, it seems, is as elusive as the Zodiac himself. The Zodiac's story is a cautionary tale about the nature of evil. He was not a supernatural entity, but a human being who chose to inflict unimaginable pain and suffering on others. He was a man who found pleasure in murder and a twisted sense of purpose in terrorizing a community. His story is a reminder that the most terrifying monsters are often the ones that walk among us. The Zodiac's final confirmed letter was sent in 1974. After that, he simply vanished. Did he die? Was he incarcerated for other crimes? Or did he simply stop, satisfied with the chaos and fear he had created? The silence is perhaps the most unnerving part of the Zodiac story. The monster had simply disappeared, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a lingering sense of dread. The Zodiac ciphers, once seen as the key to his identity, have in some ways become a part of his disguise. They have drawn attention away from the brutal reality of his crimes and turned him into a larger-than-life figure, a mythical boogeyman. The focus on the puzzles has, in a way, allowed the man behind the mask to remain a shadow, a phantom who is more legend than reality. The Zodiac's influence can be seen in the actions of other serial killers who have followed in his footsteps. His use of the media to taunt the police and terrorize the public has become a blueprint for a certain type of killer, one who craves attention and notoriety as much as blood. The Zodiac's legacy is not just one of unsolved murders, but of a new and more terrifying kind of criminal. The Zodiac story is a testament to the enduring power of fear. Even now, decades after his last known crime, the name Zodiac is enough to send a shiver down the spine. He has become a part of our collective nightmares, a symbol of the random, senseless violence that can erupt at any moment. He is a ghost that continues to haunt us, a reminder that some questions may never have answers. The Zodiac's final, and perhaps most chilling, legacy is the sense of unease that his story leaves behind. The idea that a man could commit such horrific crimes and then simply disappear, melting back into the fabric of society, is a deeply unsettling one. It suggests that the line between order and chaos is much thinner than we would like to believe, and that the monsters we fear may be closer than we think. As you listen to the silence of the night, as the shadows dance in the corners of your room, remember the Zodiac. Remember the man who turned the idyllic landscapes of Northern California into his personal hunting ground, who found pleasure in the fear of others, and who left behind a riddle that may never be solved. And ask yourself, as you lock your doors and check your windows, could there be another Zodiac out there, waiting in the darkness, ready to begin a new game? The lingering dread of the Zodiac is not just the fear of a killer, but the fear of the unknown, the fear of the darkness that resides not just in the world, but in the human heart itself.